Good afternoon, learners and scholars, and welcome to the virtual open day. My name is Shamila Manie, and I'm from the DHRS at the Faculty of Health Sciences. And what does it stand for? Department of Health and Rehabilitation Sciences. So today I'm going to ask you and tell you a little bit about physiotherapy program at UCT. And so first thing that comes to mind is you've got your Mentimeter codes, hopefully already. And my question to you is, what is the first thing that comes to mind when you think about a physiotherapist? Just a single word, anything that you associate with physiotherapy. And while you're doing that, I will tell some of you, maybe give you a lead into what physiotherapists do by definition. So what do we do really? We assess, that means we look at, we treat and prevent human movement disorders, and we restore normal function, or we try to minimize any problems or dysfunction that patients, both adults and children, may have that have physical impairments. Lots of fancy words, but basically we want to help patients get better, especially when they've had an injury or they've had surgery and they have to recover afterwards. We want patients to be able to reach their maximum independence so that they can go back to work, can go back to doing their sports, and even support and do the things that they love in the communities. So some words will be coming up soon with regard to what you think physiotherapy is. So some of you might have a good clue or understanding. Some of you might be unsure, and some of you, like me, might be completely clueless when I had to choose a career. So yes, that's great stuff. We see words like rehabilitation, lovely, bones, muscles, repair. What I'm really happy to see is there are no words related to massage or being a masseuse. So that's really great, because that's only a teeny tiny part about what physiotherapists really do. Thanks so much for participating. So you've really got some excellent words there, and that takes us straight into the different areas that physiotherapists work with. And the first one that I want to talk to is NMS and sports rehabilitation. And that was great to see that it was in the word cloud that you just created on Mentimeter for me. So what does NMS or sports rehabilitation entail? It really means that we look at people, both young and old, and manage their pain or their injuries, whether that injury is related to picking up your heavy books, carrying them every day because you got backache, or if you're a sports person and you are either an athlete or you play rugby or soccer and you've injured yourself. Similarly, we can help you prevent actually getting those injuries from the get-go. The next area, which is really not necessarily well known, is that of cardiopulmonary rehabilitation. And what does that really mean? In my day, it was called biology, but you guys know it as life sciences. So cardio is heart, and pulmonary is your lungs. And as we now know in the pandemic, a lot of patients have had problems with breathing, and really cardiopulmonary physiotherapist, or the area here, assists you in helping and improve the patient's heart and lung function. The other area that we could find that you might not be familiar with is that of pediatric neurology. And for those of us that are living the Cape, we might be familiar with institutions such as EROS or Vista Nova. These are special schools where we actually assist children that have movement disorders because they have something called cerebral palsy and they need assistance with regard to that. Last but not least, we look at the area of adult neurology. And as you can see, physios have lots of fun. See that guy smiling there. And even the lady he's treating is improving her function there. And adult neurology is just another term, fancy word to say when patients have had issues in terms of how they actually move because they've had a brain injury or they've had a stroke. Maybe you know somebody in your family that's had one where one side of their body has had paralysis. So this is really what adult neurology is. We get them back to their function, and yes, we help them to be able to move around, whether that is to walk again with or without an assistive device, be that a crutch or a wheelchair. And so you might be thinking, gosh, there's so many areas of physiotherapy that I didn't know about. And that's exactly why you're listening to this program today. And so what are your career options, you may ask? So they are actually quite vast. And the first thing you might think is, I want to be the next physiotherapist, like Renee Naylor, the first female physiotherapist. There you can see her with Sia Kulisi. She's quite short, but dynamite comes in small packages, they say. So you could be a sports physiotherapist, but you could have multitude of options. You can become a lecturer like myself at the university, but you can also have your own practice. Yes, you can be lucrative and have your own independent practice. You could work in a hospital, whether that is government or private. You could even, as I said, work at a school, at some of these special needs schools. And most importantly, but not last, you could actually become a researcher in the field of physiotherapy and contribute to both local, national, and international growth and knowledge of the profession. So that's all from me, this old lady. So now over to Sonwabile, who is an alumnus who's finished his degree. Sonwabile, thanks for taking us on your journey at UCT Physiotherapy Department. Over to you.
Thank you, Mrs. Manie. My name is Sonwabile Kwetana, and I come from the remote town of Mthatha in the Eastern Cape. So just like Mrs. Manie has told you about their experiences, my first experience with my introduction into physiotherapy actually came by way of injury. You know, I dislocated my shoulder, went to the doctor, but doctor couldn't do much for me, but I still couldn't use my right arm. And then I went to a physio, and then this was grade 10, grade 11. And then that's where it clicked to me. It was such an important aspect of life. You didn't just get injections, but you are retaught how to use your hands. So that's how I fell in love with the profession. Come grade 10, come grade 11, grade 12, like everyone else, I applied everywhere. And but I just knew that my destination of choice was in fact UCT. And I was so excited, I still remember, to get that invitation to come and study at UCT. Then I did my first year in 2016. In doing my first year, coming from a small town, I will admit some intimidation. I will admit how hectic it was. But UCT put in place measures and structures to assist people like me, to assist the fact that there were 4 lanes all of a sudden going in one direction, and you know how hectic it was. So we had support, extensive support from lecturers, had extensive support from like-minded older physio students that were in your 2nd year, 3rd year, 4th year, and that was a mentorship system that sustained me, in fact, into my final years, because I had made those connections, so I could call up anyone and say, what do I do for this exam? What do I do? So all of that played a major role into my undergraduate experience, and it helped me and it shaped me to now where I'm able to tell you and report that I work in the military. I service the Air Force, I service the Army, and I service the Navy in my capacity as a physiotherapist in the military. So I think my last message to you guys, as you embark on a career expedition, if I can call it that, is that UCT is the place to be, first and foremost. Secondly, physiotherapy is such a broad career, and in a sense, it has so many opportunities. What's different about UCT is that it allows you to maximize and get the most out of those opportunities. So that's why for me, not just as an alumnus, it has a soft heart, it's actually working for me. And then lastly, you walk out of here not just with a degree or not just with a paper, you walk out with a vastly different worldview, a worldview of service and a worldview of bettering society. So I want you to imagine this young boy walking through first year and then all of a sudden he's in the military type of situation. So that was a transformation within, but that was inspired by UCT. So yeah, so from my side, I am happy to field any questions, Mrs. Manie, that they may have, but yeah, for me, that's it.
So Not sure if I'm back on. Yes, there we go. So thank you so much for that, Sonwabile. Tell me, what was the highlight, would you say, from your physiotherapy program? Only the good stuff, please, not the bad stuff.
But also, do you just want one highlight? There have been a lot of highlights. I think the Cape Town is beautiful. Whenever you're stressed, you can just take a hike somewhere. So that's the first part. That's a free added benefit. Academically, you get to actually feel those benefits of UCT being called #1 year after year. You get to go up a particular standard. I think from a leadership perspective, I also gained a lot as a student. Things that I never thought I would never get to do, I got to do through leadership. That was encouraged not just by the university, not just by the lecturers, but there was just a broader consensus that this is not a lecturer's university, this is a student's university. So that was a major highlight, because then it changed my perspective and worldview in a sense. Yeah.
Correct. So one area that I didn't get to cover was, some people will ask, what are the characteristics of, what makes a good physiotherapist?
Yeah.
I don't know. Can we just perhaps go back to that slide? Thanks so much. And maybe before we answer that, the students the scholars can have a go at some words that they think, or from the options that they have there. What makes a good physiotherapist? I never thought when I applied for physiotherapy that a good physiotherapist would need to have how do they say it, a stomach of steel, because you get to see quite some gory things and smell some bad things too. Yeah, let's see what the Mentimeter says. Okay, yeah. So only one person says you must have a six-pack. Actually, I should be getting a six-pack too. But absolutely right. Compassionate, caring. Yes, you'll be happy to do problem solving. Absolutely awesome. Is there anything you'd like to add to that, Sonwabile?
They are on point. They are on point. I think from my perspective, especially in the service aspect of things, that compassion one is so important, because it encompasses how you want to help someone. So if you can be compassionate and understand what they're going through, then you're good. I think they're on to something. These are eye-opening characteristics. It's very good, yeah.
Great. So we are having great applicants, future applicants for the physiotherapy program. So if I can add my last, the lecturer always wants to have the last say, but so I made a little acronym for us in terms of what we think good physiotherapy qualities would be. And that is really the acronym SPARK. And you don't have to be a completely firecracker spark. You just need to have that spark. So S, I would say, stands for scholarly, because you're going to have to study. There's lots of things that you need to know, but you have to have passion. Just like you can see, Sonwabile has passion for what he does. Passion will drive you and get you through the 4 years. Adaptability, you absolutely need to be able to be flexible. Sometimes you plan one thing to do and everything goes awry. And so you need to be able to adapt. But most importantly, you must be resilient. When you go from grade 12 to being a varsity student, the change can be quite startling and quite scaring and jarring. But you need to pick yourself up, because, sometimes you might have been on the top of the ladder and then you find yourself falling down the ladder a little bit like snakes and ladders. But the winner is always the person that gets up every single time and tries to do better the next time. And lastly, C. So we take some creative license for C. I know you guys are all very good spellers, even though you're on, thumb wars all the time. So the C should be okay, but this time we're saying C for commitment. And you need to be committed to yourself in bringing out the best in you, but also commitment in terms of ensuring, as Sonwabile said, good service to your clients that you will be able to see during your undergraduate program, but also once you qualify. And I think that's a wrap. Thank you so much for listening to us. And thank you once again, Sonwabile, for your insight. Yeah, and for those that don't know, because he didn't share, Sonwabile is back at UCT doing some post-grad studies, which is really, really great. So are there in these there, you can see the slide, what are the minimum requirements that you may need? And so the subjects are English, maths, and physical science or life sciences. And yes, that is mathematics, not maths literacy. You have to have an academic points score of 360, a minimum. So absolutely reach for the maximum. And then you'll have a national benchmark test as well. But if there are any questions that we need to field live, Heather, my colleague in the background, are there any questions that you have for us that Sonwabile and I could answer?
Thanks, Shamila. I think most of them at the moment have been around the entry requirements, which you've just qualified and explained. I think there has been some issues raised about the differences between physiotherapy and biokinetics. If you want to share anything, and
that's a very hot topic.
It is rather, but I think as explanation that physiotherapy works from both acute settings right the way through the rehabilitation spectrum, whereas biokinetics for the moment are focused more on the end stages of rehabilitation, and is not offered as an undergraduate degree. And I see someone has just asked about the differences, or how does one become a veterinarian physiotherapist? And we chatted about this earlier.
Indeed, we did. So apparently we do have now both veterinary physiotherapy, but currently it's not offered at UCT. And I must admit that I actually don't know where in South Africa it's being currently offered. Heather, have you been able to understand that?
I do, because I have a master's student looking at it. It's been offered at an institution in Plettenberg Bay, whose name escapes me, but if you Google veterinary physiotherapists, they're the only ones that come up in South Africa, and they are registered with the South African Veterinary Council.
Thank you so much for that. You see, we all love Professor Google. Are there any other questions that we could assist with?
So again, I think maybe around what we consider in the application, and whether job shadowing is a sort of prerequisite when applying at UCT.
Well, job shadowing, I think, is always a good idea, because you might have a certain concept in your mind about what a physiotherapist does, or what he or she or them don't do. So I would really, I know it's challenging in COVID current times that people are not necessarily freely able to do so, but I would encourage, when the opportunity arises, to do just that, and then to not restrict yourself to only going to private practitioners, but trying to get a more broader scope in terms of applying to general hospitals, be those private or public, and even your local community health center. Some do have physiotherapists at their facilities, and I'm sure also would be willing to assist with some format of job shadowing at those facilities. But you'll have to inquire yourself independently. You could go to the Department of Health's website and find out all the community health centers there. Then you could contact them. They usually have a list of, the type of practitioners that they have at the facility. Sorry, did I cover everything there, Heather? What was the other component?
Yeah, just one last, if there's time. Perhaps just to discuss the postgrad options in physiotherapy for students who are thinking a little bit further ahead.
Oh, wow, that's wonderful that we have students already considering that wonderful area of research and engaging. So postgraduate studies at UCT and the physiotherapy department is definitely doable. We have a master's degree, which you will have to do an entry first after your undergraduate degree. And that we only have in the physiotherapy department as by means of dissertation. What does that mean? You have to do a research proposal, and you actually do a research project. So there's no coursework with it. What does that mean? It means that you asked to become a candidate as a master's candidate, and you apply, you then are accepted. Then you get a supervisor and you work with that person in terms of the topic. You don't have to write subjects like about a statistics course or a module, you go straight in just doing the project. The other way we do also have a master's program is the sports master's. Is that correct? Is that what it's called now, Heather? The MPhil?
Exercise and sports physiotherapy.
That's correct. Exercise and sports physiotherapy. And in that program, you do have coursework as well as a component of a thesis or dissertation, which I just explained.
Thanks, Ms. Shamila.
So for a master's, minimum is that you'll do it over 2 years. And most people that do the coursework masters are often those that have already employment and they need to do it part-time. And then there are times where you would come in for specific modules. Currently, we're doing all that online due to the COVID pandemic. But previously, that would have been contact sessions where master's students then come in and engage with their lecturers and their peers. With regard to the dissertation route only, in some cases we do have international students as well coming to us, and that's really great because we are in the top ranking university in Africa with regard to research, and so we do get international candidates, and then they would also require to spend some time with their supervisors in Cape Town. There are definitely opportunities for that, and we welcome students to go this route, as Nwabile has done, to come back to us and do their postgraduate degree.
Thank you. Do we have time for one more?
Yes, of course, we have a few minutes more, always more time for the scholars.
Okay, I think people are concerned about prospects for jobs on graduation and where they would go and work. And I think it's important to understand that you would do a year's community service on graduation, which is guaranteed. And then there would be multiple opportunities in public and private sector to enter areas that you were interested in and start to develop in musculoskeletal or cardiorespiratory physiotherapy. But if there's anything else to add from either Nwabile or Shamila?
Maybe.
So I also do work in terms of sports teams, local sports teams, netball, soccer. There's that opportunity as well. Academia is also a very interesting way, as we've spoken in depth about, and you can hold all of those 3 titles kind of at the same time. So that dynamic and adaptability of a physio really comes into play. So there is kind of a good market, and even overseas, South African physios are well regarded, especially those who come from UCT. So, but don't go. We want you here.
Yes, please stay here.
There is a plethora of opportunities, generally speaking. Yeah.
Okay, and I think that's almost our time with you, scholars. Thank you so much for engaging with us today. We hope that you have learned a little bit more about what physiotherapy is all about, and we hope to see your applications coming fast and furious. For those that are already in grade 12 and for those that are in grade 11, that you have sufficient information. Please don't be shy, look at the website, even the physiotherapy and the university website to get information and contact us. We'll be happy to engage with you on that platforms as well. Thank you very much. Thank you so much once again, Nwabile, and to you, Heather, too, for fielding all the questions. I hope you don't have sore fingers now after all the time.
Thank you, Shamila. Thank you all.
And to everyone in the background for making this possible. Awesome. And to the learners, most importantly. Thank you so much.